this episode, we are going to focus on what happens after the visible crisis has passed, because the period immediately following an incident is one of the most valuable and most frequently wasted opportunities in cybersecurity. Once systems are stabilized and the urgent pressure begins to fade, there is a natural temptation to return to normal operations as quickly as possible and avoid revisiting the discomfort of what just occurred. However, that instinct, while understandable, prevents organizations from extracting the full value of the experience. Every incident contains embedded lessons about detection gaps, decision-making friction, communication breakdowns, and control weaknesses that may not be visible during routine operations. Improving response capability requires structured reflection, disciplined analysis, and deliberate refinement so that the organization becomes stronger after each event rather than simply relieved that it survived. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A lessons learned process is not a ceremonial meeting held to satisfy governance requirements, nor is it a forum for assigning fault to individuals who were operating under stress and incomplete information. Instead, it is a structured review designed to analyze how the system of people, processes, and technology performed as a whole. The purpose is to identify what worked well, what slowed response, and what assumptions proved inaccurate once tested by reality. By focusing on systemic factors rather than personal blame, organizations create an environment where participants are willing to speak honestly about confusion, hesitation, and uncertainty. That honesty is essential because meaningful improvement depends on accurate understanding rather than polished narratives. The timing of a lessons learned review influences its effectiveness in subtle but important ways. If it occurs too soon, participants may still be emotionally charged, defensive, or fatigued from long hours of response activity, which can distort discussion. If it occurs too late, memories fade, details blur, and subtle decision points are forgotten or oversimplified. A balanced approach schedules the review after stabilization, but while documentation, timelines, and communication records are still fresh and accessible. Using documented evidence from the incident, such as log excerpts, escalation timestamps, and decision records, anchors discussion in facts rather than impressions. This evidence-based structure reduces the risk of hindsight bias and allows the team to reconstruct events accurately rather than reconstructing them conveniently. Detection capability is often the first area that benefits from structured reflection, because many incidents reveal that early signals existed but were misunderstood, deprioritized, or missed entirely. A review should examine how the incident was first recognized, who noticed it, and what factors influenced the speed of escalation. Did monitoring tools generate alerts that were overlooked due to alert fatigue? Did an employee report suspicious behavior that was not taken seriously at first? Were there earlier indicators that could have triggered investigation sooner? By asking these questions methodically, organizations can refine alert thresholds, improve logging coverage, clarify reporting guidance, and reduce ambiguity around what constitutes an actionable signal. Strengthening detection shortens the time adversaries can operate, which directly limits potential damage in future events. Containment decisions also deserve careful examination because they often involve trade-offs between speed and stability. During an incident, teams may isolate systems, disable accounts, or restrict network access in order to limit spread, but those actions can have operational consequences that ripple outward. A lessons learned discussion should analyze whether containment was proportional to the threat, whether critical dependencies were understood before action was taken, and whether decision authority was clear at each step. For example, if responders hesitated because they were unsure who could approve isolating a revenue-generating system, that hesitation reveals a governance gap rather than a technical flaw. Clarifying decision thresholds and documenting authority boundaries transforms uncertainty into structured readiness for future scenarios. Communication effectiveness is another dimension that frequently emerges as either a strength or a vulnerability during incidents. Internal communication must balance transparency with accuracy, while external communication must balance timeliness with legal and reputational considerations. After-action reviews should examine whether updates were delivered consistently, whether stakeholders received clear guidance, and whether confusion arose from incomplete or conflicting information. It is important to evaluate not only what was communicated, but how and when it was communicated. Small delays or unclear phrasing can create misunderstandings that complicate response and recovery efforts. Refining communication protocols based on lived experience strengthens organizational confidence and protects credibility during future events. Root cause analysis is central to meaningful improvement because it forces the organization to look beyond symptoms and address underlying vulnerabilities. A compromised account is rarely the true root cause. The deeper cause might involve weak authentication controls, insufficient monitoring, poor access governance, or inadequate user awareness. A ransomware infection may reveal outdated patching processes, excessive administrative privileges, or ineffective network segmentation. By identifying and documenting these deeper drivers, organizations can prioritize remediation that prevents recurrence rather than merely cleaning up visible damage. Root cause analysis connects incident response to long-term risk management strategy and ensures that tactical fixes do not substitute for structural improvements. Documentation updates are a practical outcome of lessons learned, and they represent the formalization of experience into institutional knowledge. Playbooks may require clearer decision trees, updated contact lists, or refined guidance for evidence preservation and system isolation. Escalation procedures may need simplified language to reduce ambiguity. Communication templates may need revision to reflect actual stakeholder expectations. Updating documentation immediately after lessons learned ensures that improvements are embedded in process rather than remembered informally by a small group of individuals. This step is critical for resilience because staff turnover and organizational growth can otherwise erode hard-earned insight. Training and exercises should evolve as well, incorporating scenarios that reflect real-world events the organization has faced. When exercises mirror actual incidents, participants recognize their relevance and engage more deeply. For example, if a recent event revealed confusion around privilege revocation, future tabletop exercises can emphasize identity and access scenarios. If communication challenges surfaced, simulated crisis communications can test revised messaging frameworks. Reinforcing improvements through rehearsal transforms theoretical refinements into practiced habits. This iterative cycle of experience, refinement, and rehearsal steadily increases response maturity. Continuous improvement should extend beyond headline incidents and include smaller events and near misses, because these seemingly minor occurrences often reveal systemic weaknesses without the high cost of a major breach. For instance, a phishing email that was reported quickly and contained effectively still offers insight into which detection mechanisms worked and which decision points required clarification. Similarly, a configuration error discovered during routine maintenance can highlight gaps in change management oversight or approval processes. By analyzing these smaller events with the same discipline applied to larger incidents, organizations cultivate a mindset where every anomaly is a potential learning opportunity. Over time, this practice builds organizational reflexes that respond to irregularities proactively rather than reactively, strengthening resilience incrementally rather than waiting for a crisis to expose weaknesses. Metrics provide structure to continuous refinement by translating experience into measurable goals. Reviewing time to detection, time to containment, and time to recovery across multiple incidents reveals patterns that anecdotal recollection cannot capture reliably. If detection time remains consistently longer than expected, monitoring architecture may require enhancement. If containment frequently disrupts unaffected systems, dependency mapping may need refinement. Metrics should guide resource allocation and process adjustment rather than serve as superficial performance indicators. When tracked consistently, they demonstrate whether lessons learned have translated into tangible improvement. Leadership involvement determines whether improvement initiatives receive the resources and authority they require. Many refinements demand investment in tools, staff training, or infrastructure modernization. Without executive sponsorship, these improvements may remain theoretical recommendations rather than operational changes. Leadership participation in lessons learned sessions reinforces accountability and signals that response maturity is a strategic priority. When executives treat incidents as catalysts for improvement rather than isolated crises, the organization is more likely to sustain momentum for change. Cultural factors ultimately determine whether lessons learned processes become transformative or symbolic. If participants fear criticism or career consequences, they may withhold honest feedback or minimize identified weaknesses. A constructive review environment emphasizes systemic learning over personal fault. When individuals feel safe acknowledging uncertainty or error, the organization gains accurate insight into real vulnerabilities. Psychological safety in review discussions strengthens transparency, and transparency strengthens resilience. In conclusion, improving response capability requires deliberate reflection, disciplined analysis, and structured refinement that connects tactical experience to strategic improvement. Detection pathways, containment decisions, communication effectiveness, and root causes must all be examined systematically using documented evidence. Documentation updates, targeted training adjustments, and measurable metrics transform insight into sustained progress. Leadership commitment and a culture of constructive learning ensure that lessons learned become embedded practices rather than forgotten conversations. When organizations treat every incident, large or small, as an opportunity to refine processes and strengthen coordination, response capability evolves steadily, reducing the likelihood that future crises will unfold in the same way as the past.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.